Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
All right, guys, today we're going to be reacting to a clip from Greg Fitzsimmons' podcast featuring Dusty Slay. He brings up the great tough crowd, and he sort of takes some loose shots at Kill Tony and the death of roast battles. Let's hear.
And then Leary's like, you were probably the kid in high school that was like, hey, teacher, you forgot to give us homework. And then Giraldo, and I'm paraphrasing, this went on much longer, but then Giraldo goes, well, maybe if you had written more, your show would still be on the air.
Oh,
and the crowd went crazy. And like Leary literally had to be held back. He wanted to beat the shit because he's a fighter. And he wanted to come after Giraldo. But, you know, Giraldo's a tough, he was a tough kid from Queens, and he could take care of himself.
So if you don't know the story, if you haven't seen the clip, the great Greg Giraldo sitting there on Tough Crowd was seen by Dennis Leary in the back writing notes about whatever topics they were given for the show. And Dennis mocked him on the show saying, oh, this guy was trying to get extra homework in class. He was that kid. And Giraldo ended up destroying him, making Leary look like a bully, look like somebody who's not trying. And it went viral, essentially. Whatever viral was back then, especially in the comedy scene. And Greg is sort of referencing that, talking to Dusty Slay here. And he does bring up Kill Tony. I'm not even sure why.
It was so beautifully awkward, and nobody knew what to do after that.
It's so funny. The guys, I mean, it's almost cliche, but the guys that love to dish it out the most can hardly take it. I mean, how you going to come at a guy for preparing, and then if he gets you, you want to fight?
Right.
Come on, buddy.
Yeah. No, it's true. The insult people really are the most thin-skinned out of everybody.
Now let's remember, who does everybody like to claim as the best roast guy? Tony Hinchcliffe. So then, in turn, that means that he too is very thin-skinned. Much like a Jeff Ross, a David Lucas, okay? These guys that so heavily fall on this roast mentality, it doesn't last, first and foremost. And sometimes they get got, right?
Everybody. And that's why these roasts, everything is a roast now.
Yeah.
Either it's Comedy Central doing roasts, or you got, Roast Battle that they do at the store. That's a big podcast. And you got Kill Tony, which is essentially just a roast. And
you hear that, Tony? You hear that? Kill Tony is essentially just a roast. And that's coming from Greg Fitzsimmons, who has been on Kill Tony multiple times. Even way back when they were at the store. This guy knows the show. He knows what they're asking for, what the crowd wants after that comedian does their 1-minute set. It's just a roast. It's a way for Tony to make himself look better. Okay? Because he was invited to do roasts in the beginning and he knew how that felt. So he wanted to be in charge of that. It's exactly what that show is. And that's coming from somebody like Greg Fitzsimmons, like I said, who has done the show. And he's also a veteran of comedy. Stand-up comedy. Okay? He's not just hosting stuff. He has. But goddammit, the man can write a set.
which I just did this week. And I roasted one of the comedians. And he fucking roasted me back. And he was like, you look so old. You look like you have AIDS. And I just looked at him like, yeah, I kind of do. I know. And I didn't have a comeback. And I just sort of said... So I like made fun of his pants or something, but like here I am, this seasoned comic, and this is just like this young Austin, buck who kind of got the better of me. It sucked.
That's why I don't like to do crowd work, because I'm always afraid the audience member is going to be funnier than me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can write my material and I can improv. I can.
Now, you put that on a grander scale. When you talk about somebody doing crowd work and being afraid of the people in the crowd being funnier, that's why a lot of comedians can't stand putting content online, because so many times the commenters are funnier. So many times. No matter what it is that you post, whether it is you doing stand-up or just you petting your horse, okay, trying to be cute. the comments are always going to be funnier than that.
Yeah. Flow with it, but I don't like to go at people in the audience.
No, you flow. I like your little flows and you're special. They're small and they're very organic. Like at one point, like you picked up your bottle of water and you went to screw the cap off and it was already unscrewed. And you took a moment to comment on it and you got like 2 or 3 beats out of it. Yeah. And then you went right back into your act and like.
Look, the way I see it too, when it comes to being a comedian, it's one of 2 things. It's either you're obsessed with the writing aspect and performing these jokes and the math of it or whatever, or simply you just are still trying to relive the attention that you once got being the funny person in school. Okay? That's why a lot of the comedians fail, because they're relying on that attention, that they could go back to these old, bits that they would do as a kid and somehow it would play as a 35-year-old grown man. Right? So it is an odd job, much like being an actor, much like anybody that tries to get into entertainment. But to me, I've always seen comedy as this sort of a punk version of Hollywood, right? They were sort of against them. It was crazy if somebody that did stand-up broke into Hollywood. Now it's almost like they're begging for it. They need it, right? And that defeats the entire purpose of this genre of entertainment. You guys have all become just a part of the system now. You're just another person who's trying to get money. And when you go and you, like I said, you put this on a grander scale even more. You talk about the Riyadh Festival. You speak on comedians who are literally just trying to get the money. That's what they did. That's a prime example of that. And it stinks, man.
Somebody had a funny laugh and you noticed that and you did a callback to one of your jokes. And no, I like that. I don't like when somebody can't acknowledge anything throughout their entire set. Like, I feel like that gets, then you feel like you're watching TV.
Well, that's how I used to be. I used to be very scripted, and I didn't want anything to throw me off. But just stage time, you go, and now I love to do that. I love to comment on little things. I have made so many water bottle jokes, that I actually.
Now, I look at this clip because, again, I respect both these guys as comedians. First and foremost, out of anything that I have created on this channel, I've always had this perception that comedians are checking into it, right? And I sort of got proof when Dusty Slay himself commented on a video that I made about him. Of course, this is when I was sitting down scripting everything and whatever, but to see that happen, it's proof that they care. They want to know how the fans feel, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes they really like it when it's bad. But the idea is, don't let it get you down, man. Who cares? If you truly believe in this thing, you've got to this level, why do you care? Why does it bother you? That's why so many people cover Brendan Schaub, because it does bother him. He lets it get to him, right? He can't not let it get to him to the point where he's making fun of people that doesn't even make sense, or calling out people that doesn't even make sense. But again, Kill Tony is a roast, man. It's Tony being an okay comedian, surrounding himself with even less okay comedians. So he looks like a better comedian. He actually looks like a comedian, in fact. When you got a guy who's only playing a soundboard. Go check out Greg Fitzsimmons' podcast, man. He's been doing it for years. Less than 3,000 views on this episode 3 months ago is a shame. Yeah, hit the like, hit the subscribe. But until the next one.